Time now for a viewer question. Andrew had a nice two-parter. Love this one after last night's show. He wrote, I'm curious as to where did the people in the 50 sweeps per week go? Also, when they call it a sweep, what's the average number of campsites involved? Great question. So before we dive in, a quick recap on the story that he's talking about. After largely halting this practice during the pandemic, the city of Portland announced that starting this week, crews will be clearing more homeless camps. That said, how many more specifically? That's a little bit fuzzy. Pre-COVID, the city cleared about 50 camps per week on average. That's where Andrew got that number. After COVID hit, it was more like 5 camps per week. As of tonight, 13, more than a dozen, 13 exactly, are slated to be cleared. We just got that number in. We will keep you posted. So I'll clear up one of the questions right now. The term sweep, which actually we'll explore on its own in a minute, has traditionally referred to crews clearing just one camp. That camp can have many tents, but it's kind of a singular thing. On to your other question as to where people go. We took that to 2 very informed people, very informed on this topic. First up, a man named Gary Barker. He is the lead ambassador for the newspaper Street Roots. And you'll see he's talking to us from his apartment, meaning he has housing now. We actually just got some furniture right before he talked to us, but he spent roughly a decade on the streets in Portland. And suffice it to say, his camps were cleared many times. Here's his take on Andrew's question, which again is, where do people go when their camps are cleared?
What's the answer to that? What happens in your mind?
Yes, some people do go to a shelter, but most of them don't because the shelter system is so rigid. It doesn't fit the makeup of people today. You know, nobody wants to be told what to do or told when time to lay their bed or it's just too rigid. Now, the only shelter that I've been to that I appreciate to this day, and that was Do Good by Noma. They have a very low barrier shelter, and they work with you to get ahead. You know, they assign a case manager with you, and they real laid back and they don't force themselves. They let you think about it, and you know you can lay there and sleep if you want to, but eventually you're gonna get tired of just laying around doing nothing, right?
You don't like the word sweeps, right?
No, they're not.
Why not?
And the only reason why I don't like them because the actions that come with it are somewhat unhumane to me. Because when you take another human being and treat them that way, like disrespectful and rude, and just take all their belongings that they own in the whole wide world and dispose of them, and tell them they're gonna get them back, which you don't, you never see it again. And leaves you kind of frustrated, angry, and it tears at your self-esteem. It makes you feel like less than or different than.
We wanted to explore that second question, by the way, because we've heard mixed reviews on that point. So the city, you should know, refuses to call them sweeps. They call them removals, or they say they're clearing camps. I've also met people on the streets who actually, they've told me, prefer the term sweeps because they believe the process is inhumane. So in their minds, why use nicer verbiage to hide that? Just an interesting point. We wanted you to be informed. Okay, next we want you to hear from Kim James. She is with Cascadia Behavioral Healthcare, and actually she runs their street outreach teams. That's 3 teams of 2 people who go out roughly 5 days a week and talk to people in camps, often just before those camps are cleared. Each team makes contact with hundreds of people per year, and James had a different take on where exactly people go when these camps are cleared.
What happens in your experience?
As of our last reporting, we were over 68% of individuals who decided to take advantage of the opportunities through either our intensive street engagement program or our mental health street outreach program. We also have, some federal HUD funding through our PATH program. So while it's not an overnight phenomena, it does happen, and we work with an individual who is able to, work their way back into the system. And once they decide, even after they decide, the wraparound services are there. So our goal is to not only house new people, but keep those that we have housed inside.
Gotcha.
Hopefully
So
that answered your question.
I think it does. So I just want to make super clear that
Okay.
68% number, you're saying that many people in your experience, based on the reporting Cascadia has done, maybe not immediately, but end up taking advantage or connecting with services and getting placed into some sort of housing as a result
Some
of
sort of
making
housing
contact
process.
with
Right.
Cascadia at that time.
Right. So I think it's not just making contact. We go out, our outreach teams are out on the street. We're connecting with folks. We keep going back to connect with those individuals. We continue our processes. Some folks have taken years, some people have taken days. So we continue to work with those people until they are ready. And I think that's part of the difference. We stay with you from the day we meet you on the street to the day we get you inside, and then sometime after to make sure you're stable. So I think that
We'll have much more from James throughout the week, including her perspective on how much homelessness actually has increased throughout the pandemic. The data on that we've reported will likely take several months, if not more than a year at this point, to calculate. But she has some really interesting thoughts. You'll want to hear it. Again, that's later this week. But in the meantime, I want to remind you about our Hey Help campaign. We love our themes here. This week, we are highlighting Cascadia Behavioral Health Care, and we're asking you to consider donating to help support the services that Kim just described and that they provide for our most vulnerable community members, people who are actually living on our streets and who are grappling with homelessness. So right now, just open the camera on your phone like you're going to take a picture and then point it at this QR code on your screen. It will take you to a donation link. And we're calling this, by the way, a micro donation drive. So feel free to give any amount. Seriously, no matter how small, it all helps. And each week, we're going to highlight a different cause. So if you know of a nonprofit or an organization in need, let us know with that hashtag, HeyDan.